Hey, yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is Ryan TCG, and today I'm going to be going over some of the decks that placed in the most recent late night tournament series. The late night tournament series is one of the biggest online tournament series in the Pokemon TCG. With the brand new release of Temporal Forces, there are tons of brand new decks that have been seeing success. Definitely some crazy rogue decks as well that we're going to be hopping into that I'm super excited to go over, and we're going to be going over pretty much just the top placing lists from both of the late night series that happened earlier this week. With that being said, if you're interested in playing in these tournaments, make sure to go check out the link in the description. And if you enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It's the best way to support myself as a creator. But with that being said, let's hop right into it. So anyways, hopping into the deck that won the tournament here, we have Lost Zone Toolbox. Definitely a pretty unconventional list with the brand new format. People have been cooking up these pretty cool homebrew decks. Pretty crazy lists have been popping up. We're going to some of those shortly, but this is Lost Box with Radiant Zard. However, there is a twist. You have things like Iron Hands EX along with Lightning Energy, which have been injected into the list, along with things like Mew EX. Mew EX provides a great out against things like Heavy Rock Sand, Iono, just heavy hand disruption decks in general. Decks like Lost Zone Giratina, which rely on using multiple Rock Sands over and over again to oftentimes beat this matchup. You have Mew EX. You can also power it up with the Mirage Gate to use the genome hacking against that matchup. It's just a really good card, makes a lot of sense. And then Iron Hands is really powerful right now against those low HP Pokemon. You also have the ability to amp you very much against things like Lugia. Taking out Luminions is quite easy for you to take big 3 prize turns, especially with Prime Catcher, which is now in the standard format. Prime Catcher is the aspect of choice in this deck, and then the Radiant Charizard is the Radiant. This deck's pretty cool. You also have cool things like Crisis Punch, the brand new rescue board as well. You can slap that onto Comfy and give yourself free retreat. Really interesting list, definitely pretty cool to see this list see so much success. They finished with a record of 14-3 running through all of these other decks. So congratulations to Kaza for taking down the tournament. Now, moving on to number 2, we have a little bit more of a traditional deck, Charizard EX paired up with Pidgeot. However, there is a Chiyu in it. Chiyu is pretty cool, potentially for the mill matchup. I'm not 100% sure exactly why that is in there, but some interesting cards to kind of go over. We have Mist Energy. You might be wondering, wait, why are people playing Mist Energy? Well, helps out in the Roaring Moon EX matchup, which Roaring Moon is definitely, it's kind of starting to fall off. So more people are focusing on other different decks, like maybe the single prize Roaring Moon deck instead of the EX variant. But the main reason is Lost Zone Giratina. Being able to prevent Lost Zone Giratina from being able to Star Requiem you is very important. If you're playing against any deck that plays the Sableye, you can slap that on something that you don't want to be Sableye'd as well. It provides a lot of, versatility. So Mist Energy makes a lot of sense. We see Prime Catcher included in this list as well. I personally like Maximum Belt or Giant Cape in Pidgeot because Pidgeot can search Gust effects whenever you need it with its quick search. So I personally like that a little bit more. But yeah, getting second place, pretty cool. Next up, we have the deck that a lot of people have been talking about. We have the Raging Bolt deck. Raging Bolt got top 4 at the tournament with a very respectable 13-3 record. So shout out to them for doing so well with the Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt, for anyone that does not know, deals 70 times 70 for any amount of basic energy from your Pokemon that you discarded. So your goal is to use things like Professor Sada's Vitality and also Sandy Shocks, which reads once during your turn. If your opponent has 4 or fewer prize cards remaining, you may attach a basic fighting energy card from your discard pile to this Pokemon. So your goal is to get multiple Sandy Shocks up after your opponent goes down to 4 prizes. Use those Sandy Shocks, load at least 3 fighting energy a turn, and then you have things like Professor Sada's energy switch as well to be able to use Raging Bolt over and over again to take knockouts. You also have cool things like Raikou as well and Luminion, which pair really nicely with Forest Seal Stone. You have Prime Catcher as well and Trekking Shoes. So really cool list. Was awesome to see this deck do so well, and it's definitely something that I'm going to feature on the YouTube channel moving forward. Heading into The other deck that got top 4, we have Lost Zone Gutina. This is a Lost Zone Gutina deck that saw success getting top 4. Pretty standard Lost Zone Gutina list. We got ourselves the Prime Catcher. We got 4 Seal Stone. This is starting to see a little bit more play in the list just because there's some matchups you don't need to Requiem in, so you can just use 4 Seal Stone. You have Rescue Board as well, which is nice just to toss on the combo piece. Pretty much most Lost Box decks should be playing Rescue Board moving forward, and the rest of the list here is pretty standard. Without Path of the Peak, you do cut down on your stadium counts and instead play cards like Lost Vacuum and also Artisan, so definitely makes a lot of sense there. Moving on to some of the top 8 decks here, we have just pretty standard Lugia. Not a whole lot to say about it. Looks like they went for the more heavy research engine as opposed to multiple Serena. We've been seeing people kind of split on that, where some people will focus a little bit more on the heavy Serena instead of Professor Research. And for this list, we see a very, very standard, just 4 research, 3 Iono. Yeah, we see 3-3 Minccino. I like 4-3 personally, but I can understand 3-3. 2 Snorlax. I'm a fan of just 1. I think you can cut 1 for pretty much anything else. And the rest of the list is pretty standard. Master Ball. First Master Ball appearance in the top 8. Moving on, we have a Arturia list. I really like this list. I think this deck is very, very solid right now. I have been testing out Aerodactyl as well. Some people have been tossing in the Aerodactyl, but this is just tried and true, straight consistency where you want to be with Arceus. Not a whole lot else to say about the deck. The deck is very good right now, has a good Charizard matchup, which is a huge thing for the deck. So that's one of the nice things about it. Arceus is pretty good. Moving on throughout some of the other top 8 decks, we have Chien-Pao. This is our first Chien-Pao we have seen here. Got 2 Chien-Pao. We've seen a lot of lists go down to 2 Chien-Pao and increase Super Odd counts. Makes sense there, as you're not just a Chien-Pao deck, you're also have other attackers like Radiant Greninja, Iron Hands, Kyogre specifically in this build. Kyogre is great versus Lugia, allowing you to snipe those Archeopses, which is very, very good. You have Cypher Maniacs, Code Breaking, which I love. I think this card is fantastic, and I would always recommend playing 2 in this deck moving forward. Just synergizes so well with cards like Radiant Greninja, the Bibarel, and also Pokestop. A lot of early turns, I'll draw into Pokestop and Cypher Maniacs on like that very first turn, and I won't find Irida, and I'll just go put down Pokestop, Cypher Maniacs, you know, maybe double Buddy Puffin or Buddy Puffin Nestball, and then I'll just use Pokestop right into those 2 cards, and you're able to get off to a very explosive start. So I like that inclusion. Definitely pretty cool. And you also have Iono as well. I've been seeing some people play the Iono. I personally cut it from the list, but I definitely could see it back in the list, just because you sometimes, if you play too many supporters, you can run into that issue where you barrel into all of them and then you can't move the cards, which can be a little bit annoying. But overall, definitely solid, can understand the thought process behind it. Canceling Cologne is also in this list because it's much easier to accomplish. Canceling Cologne with Prime Catcher, you do not need double cross switcher, and Canceling Cologne, you just need 2 cards as opposed to 3, which does matter. It means you can actually fit in Hands and the Canceling Cologne engine. In the past, you haven't been, you know, easily able to fit both Canceling Cologne and the Hands package. You've kind of had to commit to one or the other. So the nice thing about this deck, and you know, with Prime Catcher now being a card, is you're easily, you know, able to fit both of those in. We have 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball, and then 3 Pokestop, and 8 Water, 1 Lightning to round out this deck. Pretty cool. Chien-Pao, definitely very, very solid. Can struggle a little bit to Eerie, but cool to see that. Next up, we have All Out Blitzle's crazy concoction here. We have Stall Control type deck with Wigglytuff's expanding body, which gives you 350 HP. So it's just a giant thing that can survive. Friend Tackle does 180, but they're probably not always going to be powering this thing up, even though you can, I guess. But you have, you know, the normal control stuff. Pidgeot, you have Luxray, Bouffalant, Mimikyu, Shiyu, as well as a Cloth EX. For anyone that doesn't know what Cloth does, it's quite an interesting Pokemon. This Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon. Even if it is knocked out, you discard an energy from this Pokemon. So you can attach something like Hero's Cape, give it 320. Every time you attack into it, it removes an energy, and you can penny loop it, which is kind of cool, just trying to run them out of energy, which I actually think is a really cool strategy that I initially hadn't thought of. We also have Giovanni's Charisma. This card doesn't see a whole lot of play, but it's actually pretty cool. You just put an energy card attached to your opponent's active Pokemon into their hand, and if you do, you attach an energy card from your hand to your Pokemon. So it's a pretty cool tempo swing where they have to put 1 back, you put 1 down. Kind of like it. Pretty cool. And yeah, these are some of the top 8 lists from the tournament. Some other cool decks as well that got top 16. We have this Iron Hands deck. I've been testing this out. I think it has a lot of potential. Definitely also will be something that I feature in the future in a video. We also see Arc Armor Rouge. This deck has been also getting some talk recently as well. Very, very cool. Being able to use that Armor Rouge is fire off to move energies around, giving you quick access to things like Delphox, Mew EX, and Radiant Heatran. Also got Armor Rouge EX, which at the very end of the game can be a nice Pokemon to have with a ton of HP, which is really, really cool. Moving on to the late night 100 and I believe 79 here. Let's see where it is. Late night 179. This was the very first one. There are 2 every single Tuesday, so this is going to be the very first one. Just going to quickly kind of go over this one. This one is a little bit smaller, but we see Charizard with Mist Energy taking the W, along with also Gardevoir getting top 4. I think this was worth mentioning here. Gardevoir is still a deck that, in my opinion, actually has a lot of potential. Will definitely be something that we go over in the future, but I think this deck is really, really cool. I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for, and I think this list is really nice. So your goal is to use the TM evolution to be able to evolve into multiple Kirlia on that first turn of the game. You actually kind of want to go second with this deck now. A lot of times Gardevoir was really trying to go first. Now you can just go second. So we can use that TM evolution, get into multiple Kirlias, and then get your Gardevoir set up, and also potentially something like Gallade to be able to use your powerful attackers like Screamtail, Driftbloom, and Mew EX, which all are useful in their respective matchups. Last off, a couple other decks that we're going to go over that I think are pretty cool. We got Banette here. Banette Gardevoir, kind of cool to see this deck seeing some play. With the item lock, you have also Gardevoir to load things up. You got Toro as well. Hero's Cape, giving yourself 350 is pretty cool. Definitely a deck that I want to try out. Then we also have Espara. Espara seen some play. Espara is a pretty interesting card. Not everyone knows what it does. Its ability Terra, as long as Pokemon is on the bench, you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks. So things that just do straight up damage doesn't affect it. Things like Sableye, I believe, go through it because that's placement of damage counters. I could be wrong, but it just says all damage done. So maybe this actually prevents Sableye because it just says damage. It doesn't say like no. Actually, no, I don't think it does. No. Sableye definitely goes through this, but I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, make sure to correct me. And then Dazzling Glaze is the actual ability because it's a Terra type. I got it mixed up. It says Terra there. Yeah, so it's a Terra type. This is the ability. Dazzling Gaze, as long as Pokemon is in the active spot. Yeah, so this is the same as Charizard. Yeah, this is just the same as Charizard. So yeah, Sableye obviously goes through that. As long as Pokemon is in the active spot, attacks used by your opponent's active Pokemon cost 1 colorless more. Pretty cool there to see that. Your goal is to get this into the active, and then use Psyball. Does 30 more for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. So it's kind of cool just to be able to, it does more damage for each energy attached to both. So, they already have to take 1 more with the ability Dazzling Glaze, and then you can Psyball for a bazillion damage. You get things like Xatu up onto the field, getting lots of energy onto the field, and then you load up the Espara and use Psyball. So yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool deck. Definitely think it is a deck that could have some potential. Definitely a rogue deck, but I think it's cool. But anyways, those are some of the decks that did well at the most recent late night series. If you have any questions, make sure to let me know. Thoughts, comments, opinions on some of these decks, maybe any of them that you would like to see me feature. Make sure to let me know in the comments. But with that being said, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'll have another video out later today, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But with that being said, this is Smart TCG. Love you guys very much, and I will speak with you again soon. Peace out.